Well, hello, and I'm so excited. I'm Zach. This is my first segment with uSTADIUM. I have been with them for a little bit, and I'm just excited to bring this new side of the brand. First and foremost, just my prayers go out to everybody affected by Hurricane Ida. It's such an honor to be part of this community and to be able to give back in this way. And before I get in, just a shout out to my boy Ethan, who goes to Tulane, and he was evacuated out a couple days ago. He wrote it out in Houston. Hopefully he's got a school to go back to at some point. But anyway, uSTADIUM has always been so big on covering what goes on Sundays. Now, in the fall, let's switch things to what goes on Saturdays. College football is going to be different this year, and if you were living under a rock last year, it's going to be pretty normal looking and feeling this year. You're going to have 80,000 plus people in stadiums on a weekly basis. It's going to feel normal, and it's going to almost be hauntingly normal. So a little bit of background about me. I am a play-by-play man, radio host at the University of Missouri. So I live and breathe SEC football. I wake up and live half a mile from Furrow Field, and I can walk right past it every morning. I'm the kid that will just sit around and listen to Paul Feinbaum in the afternoons. I didn't grow up in a college football family. I grew up in the New York metropolitan area, and when you grow up around New York, New Jersey, you think Giants, Jets. You don't think, oh, well, is Alabama going to cover the spread this weekend, or who's on upset watch, or this or that. But I don't even know how I got into it, but I adore it. I love it. It's Austin. Thank you for the donation. And it's my lifeblood. And I guess going to an SEC school contributes to that. But this is my first YouTube stream. I host a weekly FM show with Mizzou every week where we talk all things Mizzou. I don't want to give away my Mizzou bias, but I'll give it away for a second. Anywho, I'm going to be debuting, and this is going to be a weekly thing, just like everybody else in college football social media. This is going to be the first of many polls that I'm going to be putting out. Call it the official uSTADIUM Top 25. And I'll have this out every week. I'll post it later today so you guys can see it written out. But I will begin counting down from 25. There are going to be some surprises here. It might be a little bit different than some of the other polls or media outlets that you've seen, but I will begin with one of my most intriguing teams of the year, and that is Ole Miss, a team with Lane Kiffin now in his second year as head coach down in Oxford. You have an offense that's led by Matt Corral. I've seen him projected as anywhere from a third round pick to people even have him going top 10. I think Corral is a very good quarterback, but the offensive firepower across the board for Ole Miss is staggering. They're going to be able to put up points on anybody. They dropped 48 points on Alabama last year. Of course, you have an Achilles heel with Ole Miss, and that is their defense. And their defense is arguably one of the worst in the Southeastern Conference. So I have them at 25 right now. I do believe that they can rattle off a 9-win season, but I don't love the fact that they're in the SEC West. I don't love the fact that they're going to have to go to Alabama. I don't love the fact that they're going to have to play A&M, who has one of these stronger defenses. I'll get into a lot of the other bigger names as we go down the line, but chalk up Ole Miss as 25. Number 24, a team that I have as one of my biggest surprises this year, and in a conference that really, or if I go a little bit further, in a division of a conference that feels really especially up for grabs more so than ever, and that will be Kyle Whittingham's Utah Utes. I have them at 24. Utah, easy out-of-conference schedule. Their toughest out-of-conference game is BYU. They don't have Zach Wilson anymore. They lost a lot of their firepower. I'm not high on the Cougars this year. I am high on the Utes, and a lot of that comes from not trusting Arizona State. We don't know what's going to happen with them in terms of the SEC or the NCAA violations. We don't know how much longer Herm Edwards and his crew have in Tempe, and we really don't know if we're going to get the 9-3 USC, or are we going to get a resurgent Chip Kelly with UCLA? Is Arizona even going to show up? What does Colorado bring in their second year with their new head coach? But we don't know, and I think Utah is a team full of veterans. They have a team that really can stand out in an environment that is wide open. So chalk up the Utes at 24. 23. First group of 5 school I have is the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. Now, there's going to be a lot of talk about them this week because they are starting off with Texas. And Texas is always prone to that big week 1 upset. They are ranked in the AP poll right now, but I really do like what Louisiana Lafayette is putting together. They're one of the better group of 5 schools this year, and there's a bit of a change in the hierarchy of group of 5 schools. Billy Napier, it's his 3rd season with the Ragin' Cajuns. I think he is just about due to get hired to a Power 5 job, so this is likely his last year with Louisiana Lafayette. But after Texas, they have a pretty easy schedule. They have a really, really good roster that stuck together last year. We will see what happens with them, but I'm going to have my eyes on that early game Saturday when they play Texas, because I know it sounds very, oh, it's Texas. Texas is never going to be back, and I'll get into that, but there's a real chance that Louisiana Lafayette goes into Austin and comes out with a win. I'm not just saying that because I think it would be funny or I think it would keep narratives alive. I think it's actually possible. All right, 22. 22, I'm going to go with USC. We all know USC, it's the same thing every year. Is this going to be the year Clay Helton either breaks through and keeps his job long-term, or is this going to be the year that his team implodes and he gets fired? We don't know. Keaton Slovis, I'm not as bullish on him as other people are. I still think he is a good quarterback, probably the best quarterback in the conference. But USC is always prone to those terrible losses, and they lose games that they should not lose. They don't have a very tough out-of-conference schedule, and they don't really have that tough of a schedule as is this year because they don't have to worry about anybody big out of conference. Usually USC is in a big out-of-conference game once or twice a year. That's not the case. Their toughest out-of-conference game is BYU, and that is in Los Angeles at the end of the season. So I think USC is an 8-9 win team, but for the people that really, really, really care about the Trojans, that's not what they want. USC is meant to be a powerhouse, and I don't even think they can be a powerhouse anymore because so many of the big recruits that come from that neck of the woods, from Southern California, they wind up going north to Eugene if they want to stay on the West Coast. But USC, they always figure out a way to come into the season ranked, and they always figure out a way to leave the season ranked. So give me USC at 22. 21, we always have fun with the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. I adored their story last year. They're so much fun, just where they came from, how they even made it up to the FBS level. Another guy that's a head coach of a group of 5 school, and Jamie Chadwell, he's probably on his last or second to last year before he gets up to Power 5. But I love this team, and they're going to get a chance to host. They're going to get a chance to host a group of Power 5 team out of the gate week 2. Of course, calling Kansas a Power 5 school is kind of generous, but it's still a big deal if you're someone that was FCS up until 2017. Of course, last year, Chanticleers go 11-1. They beat BYU in what might have been one of the most unlikely games to ever get College Game Day ever. College Game Day wound up in Myrtle Beach in November in a game that was not even supposed to happen. But Grayson McCall is their quarterback. I think he's got a chance to be really good. Give the guys with the mullets a chance. I think they're locked in at 21. 20, team that I'm not sure about. I really like the coaching situation. They do have a great quarterback prospect coming in. I don't know if he's going to be that impactful out of the gate, but I'm going to go with the Washington Huskies at 20. I like what Jimmy Lake is doing, revitalizing the program that Chris Peterson left behind. But is there too much competition with their rivals to the south? I do not know. It doesn't help that Washington over the last decade or so has really struggled against the Ducks. Keep an eye on the Huskies. They're going to be an intriguing team to watch this year. And when Washington is good, Husky Stadium in Seattle, hey, first of all, it's beautiful, but one of the toughest places in the nation to play. Well, 19. I got to get it out of the way. It's Texas. First year of the Steve Sarkisian era for the Longhorns, and it's not an easy slate for them. Louisiana Lafayette screams the trap game from hell for the Longhorns. This might be their last or second to last year in the Big 12 before they go SEC. I don't love their offense. I really don't love their roster all that much. I think that Oklahoma and Iowa State are both much better. And Sarkisian, of course, we know what he is capable of, as he was the offensive coordinator for an Alabama offense last year that was downright historical. And I do love Bijan Robinson as Texas's starting running back. He's going to be very good. But I don't know how much a good running back can really carry when Texas is going to have to go to Ames later this year. They have the Red River game as always. Louisiana's not easy. Arkansas, I don't have them ranked, but I think they can be very good. Texas, to me, I don't think they're going to be ranked at the end of the year. And maybe that's just narratives being narratives. If there's any time to change the way you think of a program for Texas, right now is that time. But until we actually see it happen, I can't buy it. I'll leave them at 19 right now. 18. This is a team that I think is the exact opposite of Texas. That can go way up, and that is Penn State. Penn State has been due for a very good year for a while, and they don't have an easy schedule either. For the first time in a long time, the whiteout game is not going to be Ohio State or Michigan. It's going to be Auburn. An SEC team is making it up to State College. They also play Wisconsin out of the gate. Madison's going to be a very tough place to play, but I like Sean Clifford. I really do. Jahad Dotson, one of my favorite receivers that is coming into this season as a senior. Kid's got some of the best hands I've ever seen. He's going to be a name on the rise. I think James Franklin knows that there is pressure. He knows that this is a season where they have to make a stand. But despite all of that, Penn State's going to have to go to Columbus. They're going to have to play Auburn and Wisconsin on the road out of the gate. That's really, really tough. Indiana, I'll get to them in a second. But other than Wisconsin, Auburn, Ohio State, and Indiana, those are all winnable. Oh, boy, I almost forgot. They got to go to Iowa. And Kinnick Stadium, especially if the game's at night, is a house of horrors for any big-name program. But I'll leave Penn State at 19. I think they can – or excuse me, 18. I think they can climb up. But that is just me. 17, speaking of Iowa, this is going to be one of those every 4 years where the Hawkeyes are really good. And when you have a team that is full of veterans, Kirk Ferentz still around, stable coaching staff, one of the toughest places to play in college football, easy out-of-conference schedule except for one game, I think if you're a college football fan in the state of Iowa this year, you have it really, really good. But also, the Hawkeyes don't start easy either. They have to deal with Indiana, and Indiana is number 16 on my list. So let's talk about Indiana. Tom Allen comes in. He's not exactly beloved. His teams are hovering around mediocre. Last year, a complete revelation as they storm out of the gate. They wind up going 6-2, one of the best seasons in program history, and they wound up playing in the Outback Bowl. Now, Michael Penix Jr. is back. He got hurt last year. He was a big catalyst for the offense. Ty Freifogel, one of my favorite receivers in the class. Defense is pretty good, and their toughest road game is this one right out of the gate at Iowa. After that, their other two really tough games are at home against Cincinnati on September 18th, and then one that just screams trap game for the other guys. They get to host Ohio State. So keep an eye out on the Hoosiers. Could they be a flash in the pan, or could this be something super serious that we got to keep an eye on going forward? I'm not sure. I'll leave them at 16. Number 15. This is going to catch some eyes. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think Notre Dame is an 8-win team this year, and I can hear the audible gasps through this stream. How could you say that about the Irish? Well, consider this. Kyle Hamilton is a better version of Jamal Adams. The guy is going to be a top 5 pick, possibly a top 3 pick in the draft this year. He's great. He's one player. Notre Dame, considering that they are, in fact, Notre Dame, has one of the toughest schedules in college football like they do every year. But that comes with a team that lost so much in the draft. Technically, they're affiliated with the ACC. The ACC is still very good. And that comes with tough road games. At Florida State, that's always tough. A neutral site against Wisconsin, that stuff. They have to go to Virginia. Virginia's always okay. Stanford, don't know what they are. They have to go to Virginia Tech. Lane Stadium's always a nightmare. And they have to play Cincinnati at home. They have to play North Carolina at home. USC, they have to play them at home. I can very realistically see a scenario where Cincinnati goes into South Bend and whoops them. This is going to be the year where, or one of those years, where everybody sits back and asks, is this the year that we have to fire Brian Kelly if we're Notre Dame? I know they came off a playoff berth last year. I know they got their clocks cleaned by Alabama like everyone expected them to. I just don't think Notre Dame is going to be good this year. Will they come back? Yes, they always come back. It's Notre Dame, but not this year, not in 2021. Sorry, Irish, you're going to be unranked by the season's end. Okay, we've hit the top 14, and let's get back to a team that I think can climb up the rankings and someone that might be getting slept on in the very, very tough SEC West, and that is LSU. LSU had a tough year last year, losing so many guys after winning the national championship. They lost to Mississippi State out of the gate. They lost to Mizzou. They had a rough season, but at the end of the season, something clicked, and they found their quarterback in Max Johnson, someone that I think is going to be a Heisman candidate. Maybe not this year, but sooner rather than later. I look at him and I see a guy that can be a top 5 pick down the line. Ed Orgeron, everyone's going to have different thoughts about him, but guess what? He's still a national championship winning coach. People can't just dismiss that. Now, of course, you have to factor in, you're in the SEC West. You're going to have tough games. You're going to have to go to Bama. You're going to have to go to Ole Miss. And considering how LSU's defense struggled last year, that's going to be tough. Kentucky, that's a tough game. A&M, I think A&M is going to be phenomenal. UCLA on the road, I mean, that could be a blowout. We don't really know. UCLA is they're an enigma right now. You can't judge so much off a week 0 game in Hawaii where nobody showed up. But LSU strikes me as a team. I think they are capable of going New Year's 6. That is just me. Other people, maybe not so much. But right now, I am high on LSU. I think this is a good bounce-back year for the Bayou Bengals. 13, one of the most overrated teams in the country, the North Carolina Tar Heels. I see so many people putting them top 10, and I don't get it. Now, I'll take a step back. I think Sam Howell is every bit worth the hype. I think he's going to have a Justin Herbert kind of senior season where it's going to be okay, but he's going to have 1 or 2 games that really make him stand out as a guy that's going to go early in the draft. I think Sam Howell is fantastic. I think he is going to be a wonderful quarterback in the NFL, but North Carolina, they lost Michael Carter. They lost Javonte Williams. They lost Daz Newsome. They lost De'Ami Brown. They lost almost their entire offense, and their defense was not anything to write home about. The only saving grace for North Carolina, and this is a saving grace, is that they don't have to play Clemson in the regular season. North Carolina has a schedule that is full of yummy, delicious cupcakes. Frosted, sprinkled, everything. Their toughest game of the whole season at Notre Dame, at home against Miami, and I already shared my thoughts on Notre Dame. So I think UNC is a 9-win team. People are making them out like they're going to really kick down the door of the ACC. I don't see it happening. I think Sam Howell is great. I think Mac Brown's done a wonderful job turning the program into what it should be, and I think they'll be good down the line. don't let this season, if you're a Tar Heels fan, be anything to be concerned about. I just don't think UNC is that good outside of quarterback. All right, we're into the top 12. Another team I think is a bit of an enigma, that's Florida. We know Florida lost Kadarius Toney. We know they lost Kyle Pitts. You don't replace Kyle Pitts. Kyle Trask, we don't know what he's going to be in the National Football League, but I can also tell you Emory Jones, people are middling on him. Some people think he's going to be meh. Other people think, oh my goodness, this guy is going to carry the torch. I don't know what we're getting in Emory Jones. I think Dan Mullen is a fantastic coach. I think Dan Mullen is somebody that no matter who's on his roster, he will keep them competitive. Florida also has a tough schedule. This is one of those years where they do wind up with Alabama. Of course, they get LSU as their cross-conference or their cross-division game every year, but you have Alabama and LSU. You get Alabama week 3. That is, I mean, yes, it's at home, and yes, the Swamp is going to be absolutely rocking, but it's still Alabama. At LSU, that's going to be difficult. And of course, they got to play Georgia, and I'll get to my thoughts on Georgia later. Not to toot my own school's horn, but for a team based in Florida to have to go to Missouri and on November 20th when it could be snowing, it could be cold, that could be a really, really difficult trap game for them. So I don't love the Gators, but it wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be outwardly stunned if Florida comes out, rattles off 10 wins. I don't think they're winning the East, but I don't think they're a bad team. Stay in the Sunshine State. Another team I don't really know what we're getting in, Miami. Miami is going to start the year 0-1 because they're going to have to play Alabama. That is factual. I'll get into upsets. I don't think that's happening. I think Derek King is great. I love what Manny Diaz has done with this program. I really do think the U is back. But they did lose a bunch of guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You lose Greg Rousseau, Quincy Roche, and Jalen Phillips all in 1 year. That's tough. Not having much of a home field advantage, still tough. But I think the U can come back and be what it once was this year. And once again, it helps you don't have Clemson. At UNC is tough. At Florida State is tough. None of their home games, except for Michigan State, are anything compelling to write home about. But I like Miami. I think they're going to be a fine team this year. And that's why I have them ranked at 11. And Derek King, well, we all know what he is capable of when he is healthy. We're good. Into the top 10, Wisconsin at 10. This is going to be one of those years where Wisconsin, they win a bunch of boring games. They're not that exciting, but they're consistent. And this seems like a Badger team that is absolutely headed straight for another Rose Bowl. I can see them winning a really bad West Division of the Big Ten. They're not exciting to me. They're going to play that typical Wisconsin brand of defense, your hard-nosed, smash-mouth football. But we're going to know a lot more about this team on Saturday night. What happens with Penn State is going to say so much about what this Wisconsin Badgers team is. And I think this is, once again, I think this is a year where they're going to be really good. But you don't know. Chalk down the Badgers as 10, but check back with me on that in about a week. Number 9. Now, this is a tale of two sides of the ball. This is the Oregon Ducks. This is a very different Ducks team than the brand that they have built. This is not a team that is going to be super flashy and put up points on the board. This is a team that Mario Cristobal is built through the trenches. They're going to blitz you into insanity on defense. Kayvon Thibodeaux, he might be the first defensive Heisman candidate since Chase Young. He might be the best edge rusher to come out of the draft since Chase Young. Noah Sewell, Penny's younger brother, he's going to be a top 10 caliber player next year. This year, he's going to be really good. You also have a couple guys that held out from last year. Justin Flo, best linebacker recruit in the nation a couple years back, sat out his freshman year last year because of COVID. Now he's back. Oregon on defense is going to be unlike any Ducks team we have seen before. Offense, it's a big question mark. Quarterback is tough. Oregon thought Tyler Shook was going to be the big replacement for Justin Herbert. Didn't pan out. Now he's starting at Texas Tech. So right now, Anthony Brown is the guy. I don't know. I don't think their quarterback situation is that admirable. You do have a good running game. You do have a good offense. C.J. Verdell is going to be their bell cow back. I think Joe Moorhead's a phenomenal coordinator. Oregon's going to beat the teams they should beat. Can they go into Columbus week 2 and beat Ohio State? I don't think so. But the Ducks are a good team in a bad conference. They'll go to the Rose Bowl. They'll win the Pac-12. It's going to be a very typical Oregon year. Cincinnati is my number 8. I have not had a love affair with a group of 5 team like I'm having with this 2021 Bearcat squad. Luke Fickell, bless his heart, I don't think he's going to be around in Cincinnati much longer. He seems like the kind of guy that if Michigan fires Harbaugh, he's going to be poached and head up to he's going to be the guy that's poached to go to Ann Arbor or go to Nebraska. I don't know. I think Desmond Ridder, and I'll get into this later, Desmond Ridder is a Heisman candidate. Desmond Ridder is a guy that is a catalyst of a great offense. Cincinnati's got a tough schedule. They got to go to Notre Dame. They got to go to Indiana. They do not have it easy at all. They're going to have to earn this. This isn't going to be like that UCF team that just waltz into the Peach Bowl. This could be the first team in college football history, first group of 5 team that has a realistic shot, if things go right, at making the college football playoffs. They took Georgia to the wire in the Peach Bowl last year. This is a really, really, really good team on both sides of the ball, and they could win, I think, any conference in the nation except for the ACC and the SEC. This is a very, very good team. Number 7, do I think the hype is real with Iowa State? I'm not sure. I am not sure. I'm okay with Brock Purdy, but the rest of that Iowa State offense, I mean, it's absolutely stacked. Breece Hall, he could be a Heisman candidate for sure. I think he's the best running back in the class. Charlie Kolar, one of the best tight ends in the nation. He might be the best tight end in the nation. Ames is going to be hopping this year. And most importantly for Iowa State, they get to avoid Oklahoma this year in their schedule. Their 2 toughest games this whole season I take that back. They get Oklahoma right at the end. But their 2 toughest games, except for Oklahoma, are at home. You get Iowa and Texas at home. Other than that, Iowa State is stacked on both sides of the ball. The job that Matt Campbell has done with this program, I've never seen anything like it. You go from a punching bag that this program has been for so long to a juggernaut. Matt Campbell, 100% struck me as the kind of guy that would build the program up and then he'd leave. The fact that he is staying in Ames really shows how important and how big he thinks this Iowa State Cyclone team can get. Chalk down Iowa State as number 7. I think they can really give Oklahoma a run for their money. Most overrated team in America. Number 6, Texas A&M Aggies. Why? This, in theory, should be Texas A&M's year to win the SEC West. Alabama has lost so many people. We all know who they lost in the draft last year. Of course, it's Nick Saban. He's going to retool. I'm not so sure Alabama is going to be what they were last year this year. They might be significantly worse. A&M is stacked in almost every position except for one, and that is quarterback. I think Haynes King is not the guy to be commandeering such a big, talented team. Jimbo Fisher, I think he's a wonderful coach, an amazing recruiter, but quarterback right now is his Achilles heel. Can A&M figure it out? Sure, of course they can. We have seen teams with mediocre quarterbacks go all the way to the national championship. Georgia did it with Jake Fromm. But it's also a very A&M thing for them to lose games they shouldn't lose. I can legitimately see Alabama going into College Station and Texas A&M beating them, and then Texas A&M losing a game they shouldn't in the few weeks to follow. That's just a very A&M thing to happen. But In terms of the pros, A&M might be the best team in America, not named Georgia, in the trenches. Great offensive line, great defensive line, great weapons, great secondary, great coaching staff. One of the best home field advantages in football. I like A&M. I don't think they're going to be the team that everybody says, okay, this is the year they can dethrone Bama, dethrone LSU, win the SEC West. That is not Texas A&M. I don't think that will ever be Texas A&M. But I think right now they're good at 6. We're into the top 5. And this is where heads are going to start turning. Number 5 is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Why, you say? Oh, man. I don't know what we're getting in C.J. Stroud. I think he's a talented quarterback prospect who's going to be gone in a year because Quinn Ewers is coming up. We all know their receiver room is loaded. Everything else, it's Ohio State. They do have a tough out-of-conference game this year. They do have Oregon. And they have Oregon at home. I think at the end of the season, we do see Ohio State in the playoffs. But until we see them get through a schedule that has them going to Indiana, has them playing Penn State, has them playing Oregon, this strikes me as a Buckeye team that looks very similar to the one that steamrolled through everybody and lost to Purdue. And I don't think anybody's forgetting that game anytime soon. I don't think Ohio State winds up making the playoffs. I think the 4 teams in front of them are going to stay the top 4. But let's go into that top 4. Ohio State, they'll wind up winning the Big Ten on the outside looking in. Number 4 is the Alabama Crimson Tide, defending national champions, one of the best teams we've ever seen. Alabama lost almost everybody. That's not to say that they're doomed. It's Nick Saban. He will retool. He always does. And Nick Saban always finds a way to come back better. And that's why I think Ohio State is still going to be, Alabama is still going to be a playoff team. They're Alabama. Bryce Young is going to be a Heisman candidate. And I say this knowing that he is a freshman. We know every bit of what Nick Saban does after he loses a bunch of guys. He just retools. Don't look at me a couple months from now and act like you're all stunned when they have another 5-6 guys go in the first round of the NFL draft. So Alabama at number 4. Number 3, Clemson. Clemson's a little bit different. They have not lost anybody on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, they have added DJ Uiagalelei. He's going to be very, very good. Do I think he's going to be Trevor Lawrence good? I don't know. Nobody's Trevor Lawrence good, but he's pretty dang talented. Justin Ross, after a terrible injury, year and a half off, he's back. He's going to be their number 1 receiver. Clemson is going to have a lot determined by what happens in that first game. That first game, everybody is going to have eyes on it. I still think both teams that take part in that first game wind up making the playoffs. But I actually think Clemson wins that first game. And who's that first game against? My number 2 team, the Georgia Bulldogs. Stacked in every single category. Offense, defense, quarterback. JT Daniels is amazing. Running back room, stacked. Zamir White is one of the best running backs in America. Hopefully they get George Pickens back, as he's one of the best receivers in the nation. Georgia, for pound for pound, I think is the most talented team in America. And yet I can't trust them. I feel like there's always that Georgia game where they can't do it. They can't seal the deal, whether it be at South Carolina or what I think is going to happen. What if they choke against Clemson? I think they blow a lead against Clemson and lose. Give me Georgia to still make the playoff. I think they can win the SEC. But I'm not a believer in them winning a national championship. The team I believe wins a national championship, and I have them as my number one. They have the Heisman winner this year, in my opinion, at quarterback. Stacked at every position except for running back. That's a weird little thing they got going on. That would be the excuse me. No, that would be the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma, we have never seen a Sooner team like this. And they're building an SEC caliber team because they are going to be in the SEC. Spencer Rattler is going to be the Heisman winner at year's end. Some years you get a Heisman winner that just comes out of the blue. This year will not be one of those years. Oklahoma, everywhere you look, there is talent, there is elite talent, and there are guys that are going to become elite talent. I also say this, I don't know how many years left Lincoln Riley has in Oklahoma before he's poached by an NFL team. Got to consider that. But up until that point, Oklahoma is going to be every bit as good as expected. And their big out-of-conference games? It's against Nebraska. Oklahoma, for what it's worth, is one of the easiest teams in the nation. Their easiest schedules in the nation. You got to take them seriously this year. I think they win the whole thing. I think Oklahoma is my best team. That's why I am putting them as the official university number one team in the nation. Okay, I got into a bunch of other things. My biggest surprises, my biggest disappointments. A couple teams I didn't list. For surprises, I think Boston College becomes a pretty respectable program. Jeff Hafley is a wonderful, wonderful coach. Phil Dracovic is a special quarterback. Remember, he was originally committed to Notre Dame. BC is back on the rise, and I think they're going to become that blue-collar, hard-nosed football team that they have been in the past. The other team that I really think takes that next step is Mizzou. And you're going to look at me and go, oh no. Why do I say Mizzou? Eli Drinkwitz has come from Appalachian State and turned a mediocre, at best, program into a brand. Able to beat the defending national champions at home last year. Able to get 2 top 20 recruiting classes in a row. That doesn't happen at Mizzou. You don't get 4 stars coming in every week. That is not normal for this campus. That is not normal for this community. To turn quarterback coming off an ACL tear into one of the best returning quarterbacks in America and Connor Basil. Like, I'm not saying they're going to win the SECs. There are definitely people around these parts that are like, oh, Mizzou could go 10-2. I'm not saying that. I do think Mizzou is going to be very good in years to come. I think we see them take that next step this year. I do think we see them upset a major team this year. Look out for the Tigers. As for the disappointments, I already said North Carolina, A&M, Notre Dame, Miami, Florida. Those are my 5 disappointments. Now, on to this weekend's games. Biggest upset watches this weekend, because there are some good ones. I can give you my picks in the big games first. I do think Clemson beats Georgia. I'll get that out of the way right now. I think Alabama runs over Miami. Everybody's going to say Texas loses to Louisiana. That's a trendy pick. As funny as I think it would be to see it happen, I don't think it happens. What I do think happens is North Carolina loses to Virginia Tech Friday night. Lane Stadium is going to be hopping. First game in 18 months where you're going to hear Enter Sandman as the Hokies take the field. Justin Fuente, he is coaching for his job in Blacksburg. And I think a UNC team that has just simply lost too much is going to suffer the consequences. So chalk down UNC as a big upset watch team. Another one that I'll hit you with. There are a lot of Ohio State fans looking ahead to Oregon and brushing off the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I don't think Minnesota is going to roll over and die for the Buckeyes. On a Thursday night in Minneapolis, that is a tough game. That is a game that Minnesota, I truly do think, has a chance, maybe even a win. So chalk down those two as your upsets for games that might seem closer than they actually are. Once again, I'm going to go back to Mizzou. I think Central Michigan plays them tougher than expected. I think that's a one-score game going into the fourth quarter. I would also watch out for LSU and UCLA. I think UCLA has a shot at being very good. I don't have them ranked. They are 1-0. But LSU, that program has been through a lot in the last couple of days with the hurricane. They're not practicing in Baton Rouge. They're out in Houston until Thursday, where they take flight out to Los Angeles. I think that's a tough game. I think UCLA gives them a fight. And last but not least, I think Notre Dame's going to have trouble in Tallahassee. That's a Sunday night game. That's a game that is going to be the only game on all of Sunday. And I think Notre Dame is going to be in big trouble early on. I am not high on FSU, but we all know that is a tough place to play. And the Seminoles are recovering. They're getting a little bit better. I don't think this is their year, but I think they're good enough to give Notre Dame major problems at Doak Campbell on Sunday night. Lastly, this is going to be the last thing I do. I'll tell you 5 coaches that I think are going to get fired. Number 1, I think this is the most obvious one of the bunch. It's Scott Frost in Nebraska. It has been nothing short of a disastrous tenure for Scott Frost in Nebraska. You can't be losing to Illinois, not with those resources, not with that money, not with that recruiting class, not with the brand. What Scott Frost has done at Nebraska has been almost horrific in a sense. And a program that is so used to success and nothing but. And yes, they were firing Bo Pelini and guys like that for winning 9 games a year. And now you have Scott Frost coming in, and his record is just abysmal. He's been an abysmal coach since he's come to Nebraska. 3-6, his conference records: 3-6, 3-6, 3-5, 0-1. His best record is the head coach of the Cornhuskers, 5-7. Now, I get Nebraska is very much that kind of school where you hire someone that has past connections with the university, and it seemed like such a slam dunk hire at the time, but it hasn't worked. And Nebraska, their new AD and Trev Alberts had to have known coming in that there was going to be a situation early on where he might have to fire the guy that was supposed to be the savior of Big Red football. Another guy, similar situation, hasn't been as dire, but when your expectations are national championships and beating Michigan and beating Ohio State, Jim Harbaugh has not gotten the job done. Harbaugh is not a bad coach. He's brought Michigan to several New Year's Six Bowls. He has been a guy that has brought back a winning culture to Michigan, but it hasn't been enough. Not for a program that expects what Michigan does. And I think Harbaugh is done after this year, barring something big and crazy. If he beats Ohio State, he stays. But if you take out last season, his records at Michigan have been 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4, and then, of course, 2-4 last year. Jim Harbaugh, I could not only see him getting fired from Michigan, I could see him winding up at Nebraska. But I'll mark him down right there. Another guy I think does not have time on his side, that is Mike Leach at Mississippi State. I think Mike Leach can be a great coach, not a fit for the SEC, not a fit to try and play the air raid offense against multiple teams that have NFL caliber defensive backs going after you. I don't think he has brought in the talent, and I just don't think the Mike Leach culture works in the Southeastern Conference. There is a scenario where Mississippi State can succeed. We saw it under Dan Mullen. We saw it when Dak and Nick Fitzgerald were there, but he's not the guy. He's just not the guy for the program. You want me to give you 2 more? I can definitely tell you that Herm Edwards, with everything that has happened at Arizona State with these scandals and possible recruiting violations, We could be seeing some turnover in Tempe. I think ASU is mediocre this year. Some people have them winning that division. I don't see it happening. But I'll keep my last coach firing prediction in the in the Pac-12. I think this is the year where USC finally falls off and realizes we can do better than Clay Helton. Is there a chance that doesn't happen? Is there a chance that USC somehow figures out a way to win just enough games to keep them around? Sure. But this is a list I will update as we go on. I'm really, really excited to be part of uSTADIUM. This has been a tremendous honor and one that I can't wait enough to get back with. It's going to be such a fun, big season. But before I go, I want to talk about some of the new coaches that have been brought in. I'm going to begin with Brian Hartson of Auburn. I like what Brian Hartson has done with with Boise State before he left. I actually wanted Missouri to hire him. Do I think he's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Nick Saban? I don't know. Not many people can. Maybe Dabo Swinney every other year. But I think it's a good hire. I think he can grow. What are the hires I think can be successful? That is a better question. I think Steve Sarkisian is going to be a great hire for Texas. I think he is the perfect coach to bring Texas into the SEC. I don't think it's going to be all flowers and roses and rainbows this year for the Longhorns. I think there's a real chance they might not be that great, but the recruits are going to come. Texas is going, I'm going to say it, maybe not this year, but they are going to be back eventually. You cannot keep Texas down for that long. Other coaching hires I like. I love the Malzahn hire at UCF. I think UCF can come right back to what they were before Scott Frost left for Nebraska. I think they can consistently be going 11-1, 10-2, maybe even going to that point where you go undefeated. And Malzahn has been this close to winning a national championship at Auburn. He's beaten Alabama numerous times. That was a slam dunk and a half of a hire for Central Florida. I love it. I actually also love Clark Lee hiring at Vanderbilt, going from defensive coordinator at Notre Dame to being the head coach of an SEC program. Now, granted, Vanderbilt has it harder than anybody in the SEC for college football. Not the resources, not the alumni donations, not the facilities, or baseball school. But I think you can turn Vanderbilt into a respectable program if you have the right guy in charge. And Clark Lee is a smart, good coach that can be that guy. One I'm surprised I took that long to mention, Brett Bielema at Illinois. Now, Bielema already has his first win under his belt. He took down Nebraska last weekend after losing his starting quarterback and having to play Art Sitkowski, a guy who I, as a New Jersey native, watched stink up the joint at Rutgers. That was gutsy. Yeah, sure, it's Nebraska, but Illinois is not the cream of the crop right now. Bielema, he's got so much experience in the Big Ten. He's been to those conference championships a gazillion times with Wisconsin. This is where Brett Bielema belongs as a head coach. And Illinois is a perfect reclamation project for him. I can actually see him being with Illinois for a long time. Now, what don't I like? I don't think Shane Bieber like the Indians pitcher, Shane Beamer. I don't think he's a great hire for South Carolina. I think they're in a really, really, really tough position considering who they share a state with. As of right now, South Carolina is the third best team in the program, or third best program in the state behind Clemson and Coastal. Could Beamer bring the magic back to Columbia? He could. But then again, Daniel Jones could be the guy for the New York Giants. Doesn't mean I think he will be. I think South Carolina is in like the worst position right now. You can't compete with Clemson. Soon enough, you won't be able to compete with Coastal either. That is a tough draw and just a tough hire for anybody who makes their way in. As somebody that spent time at Mizzou while Josh Heupel ran the offense. I think he is one of the most overrated offensive minds in the entire sport of football, collegiate or pro. Heupel was a good enough coach at UCF, but to have him coach Tennessee, especially after what Tennessee has been through with the NCAA violations, with Greg Schiano leaving, being forced out by the fans, that doesn't happen anywhere else. With almost their entire roster transferring, I think Heupel doesn't make it 18 months in Knoxville. Vols fans, I'm sorry. You guys are going to be searching for a new coach pretty soon. Andy Avalos at Boise State, good hire. They're definitely great names. I actually think Jed Fish for Arizona is a perfect outside-the-box hiring. Somebody that is going to take the Bill Belichick approach and bring it to college. I don't know if it's going to work. We've never seen it attempted before. But Arizona is a program with resources to be successful. Maybe Jed Fish can be the guy. We don't know. I like him. I would like to see it work out. And last but not least, how about Lance Leipold at Kansas? I have always said Kansas should just stop in a you-know-what and run the triple option. Leipold has done a ridiculous job at Buffalo. Someone someday is going to be able to instill a winning culture with Jayhawk football. I don't know when that happens. I don't know who it is. I don't think it's an inevitability that it never happens. So I actually really like the Leipold hire. I know the Mizzou people that are probably listening to this are like, Kansas football, no way. But I actually think they might have something there. Now, of course, when Kansas inevitably goes 2-10, get back to me on that. But it's going to be such an exciting college football season. One of the most intriguing. I don't think you can predict what's going to happen this year. It's a normal season for the first time in 2 years. I can't tell you, truly from the bottom of my heart, there could be a gazillion teams that come out of the blue. This could be the year where we really have a surprise show up and win the Heisman, like a Lamar Jackson or someone like that. I don't know what's going to happen. And in past years, I've been able to confidently say, oh, I think so-and-so is going to win the national championship, or I think so-and-so is going to win the Heisman, or I think – and even though I think Oklahoma could do it, I think Rattler could do it, there is a lot of gray area. There are a lot of teams that could surprise. There are a lot of teams that could really make things interesting, and I look forward to taking this journey and living it day by day with you guys. I'll be going live before the weekends and possibly even after if something crazy enough happens. Can't wait to start laying polls down. I can't wait to start really building this brand at uSTADIUM, which has done such a wonderful job getting into the professional sports scene. But once again, we've got Sundays down pat. Why not Saturdays too? So we're just going to start waiting for the next group to show up. Of course, remember to use that link bottom right corner of the screen to donate for this hurricane relief, which has been absolutely devastating. I have friends out in New Orleans right now that, well, they made it out, but they don't know if they're going to be able to go back to school this semester. The Saints said this morning that they're planning on playing the first quarter of the season out of New Orleans, which thankfully the levees did, for the moment, hold up. But the wind damage just looks absolutely horrific. It's just unfathomable. 16 years to the day to have a direct hit. But I'm so thankful to be part of this incredible team, to be part of the guys that really had the idea to put together this live stream for such an amazing cause. We're going to be going for another 7 hours after this. And it's also awesome that we've been able to find the guys to go the full 12 hours. So I'm going to sign off. I will see you guys soon. Thank you so much. And that's the first episode of uNIVERSITY. Emphasis on the U.